Good morning, everybody. Today's date is June 12, 2023. Our last session today, as I told you last week, that today is the final examination. So what we are going to do today here in this lecture is to review what we did over the last 9 weeks. Over the last 9 weeks, we have been looking at different Buddhism in different countries, especially in East Asia, right? So we started our project, our program, our class by giving you an introduction to Buddhism in East Asia. You should remember that when we say East Asia, it is the East Asian countries, not the whole Asia, South Asia, East Asia, Southeast Asia, like that. You can segment Asia into different parts, but we are focusing here in this class only East Asia, basically 3 important countries: China, Korea, and Japan. So that is East Asia. So all these 3 countries, as we saw in these last 9 weeks, these countries have been influenced by the Buddhist thought, Buddhist practices, Buddhist thinking. And that is what we looked at over the last many weeks. And before we jumped into the subject, as you may remember, we were looking at the background of Buddhism. Background of Buddhism in the sense that Buddhism started in India, and what are the background forces that help Buddhism to be a powerful force in Indian culture. And we saw that the life of the Buddha, it was Buddha being a charismatic figure who had a royal background, and also with his humane qualities, as well as his capacity to influence others with reason. All these things helped him to be a very popular person in the society, in the 6th century. And with the help of his charisma and his personality, along with the help of his followers, so a lot of followers flocked to him, and they started following him. Kings, businessmen, very important at that time. We saw that businessmen and powerful people, influential people in the society, they all listened to the Buddha. They had something interesting for them in Buddhism. So at the beginning, Buddhism had a very successful spread all across the different strata of the society, not just the elite, not just the higher ranking people, as well also for the very low, untrodden, untouchables, very low people, even very low people were able to appreciate Buddhist teachings, and then they all alike sort of enjoyed this new trend, this new teaching, this new way of life. And then how somehow Buddhism became so popular. And we were talking about the spread of Buddhism. So there are some reasons during the time of the Buddha, during the time of his career, Buddha's career, there were reasons for many causes, many reasons why Buddhism became so popular. And as well as later, after his passing, after Buddha's great passing, many reasons were help. Many things helped to spread his teaching. You know that there were 3 councils. We were looking at them. The councils helped to protect, to provide the safety and also a long-lasting structure for the Buddha's teaching. We saw 3 councils, right? And then the king Ashoka, his role as a propagator of Buddhism, he helped immensely for the propagation of Buddhism. He spread Buddhism. Being the king, powerful monarch, he was able to influence the neighboring countries and also some far-off countries with the message of the Buddha. He is pioneer in that sense. We are talking about 3rd century BCE. So like after the 200 years, at least 200 years later, Buddhism has the capacity to expand itself all across India, as well as some other foreign lands, right? So by discussing those things, I was trying to explain to you that spread of Buddhism is not a new thing. It started very long ago. And when we are talking about the Buddhism in East Asia, so you know that Buddhism started in India, but then how come it became so successful, so influential in East Asia? To show you that capacity, that ability to assimilate with the other cultures. Buddhism had that power, had that capacity. That to show that thing, I was explaining these things to you. And then when Buddhism crossed the boundaries of India and went into East Asian countries like China, Korea, and Japan, missionaries are very important. You know that from India, Buddhism went to China through the Silk Route. In those days, there were traders going back and forth, doing their businesses, engaging in trade, buying and selling. They were frequently going back and forth in the Central Asia to China. So most of these Indian traders, merchants, they carried the message of the Buddha to the other lands. That's also one of the big assets that Buddhism had. So when they were traveling into other lands, they carried a Buddhist monk with them sometimes, and some Buddhist artifacts like the statues or some texts or something like that. And along their path, they had resting places. They cannot travel all day, so they had some resting places along the Silk Route. And you know that there are big archaeological sites, Buddhist sites, that these people were able to build. The remnants are still there. So like, our attention is these people, these monks and traders, merchants, they helped the spread of Buddhism into China. So we looked at how Buddhism embraced, how Buddhism was embraced by Chinese people at the beginning. A lot of texts were taken from India to to China, and then they started translating them. Big, gigantic translation projects started in China. So then Buddhism reached China in that way. And in China, of course, we saw that new innovations came into being, new trends of Buddhism. And before that, we were able to see that the type of Buddhism, the brand of Buddhism that reached China is none other than what we may call the Mahayana Buddhism or Sarvastivada Buddhism, not the Theravada trend, Theravada tradition. When Buddhism went to southern part of India, that was Theravada branch of Buddhism. When you talk about Sri Lanka, that's Theravada tradition. But to the northern side, from the western side, actually, it came, that was Mahayana tradition. So in China, the brand of Buddhism came from India is not Theravada, but Mahayana Buddhism. And in Mahayana, within the Chinese context, along with Confucianism and Taoism, Buddhism became a powerful force in that country, and a lot of temples, monastic centers, and religious practices, rituals. Chinese people were highly ritualistic, East Asian people for that matter. And then when Buddhism reached China, Buddhism has the capacity to assimilate with the Chinese context, Chinese beliefs, Chinese rites and rituals, and also Chinese pattern of thinking. Buddhism was able to assimilate with them, adjust with the situation. This is one of the great qualities that Buddhism has. So we see that quality in China, in whole East Asia. And a lot of schools, new schools, we were talking about those things. New school, came into being in China. Chan Buddhism, we were looking at that. The Dhyana in India, in China, it flowered as Chan. So that way, Chinese Buddhist contribution when it came to like 6th, 7th centuries, it became so powerful, and it became a way of life in China. Also, we looked at Korea and Japan, both countries. Even in those countries, the same story. They were able to, the Koreans and Japanese were able to welcome Buddhism into their fold, their culture, and shape their culture according to Buddhism. Buddhism offered certain things for them, and then they innovated. They brought some innovations to Buddhist thinking. Their rites and rituals were fashioned according to Buddhist teachings, Buddhist practices, and remembering the ancestors. So Buddhism had that capacity. Buddhism was teaching about the remembrance of their past relatives and ancestors, sharing merits with them, those type of ideas, rituals, a lot of rituals related to those things. And at the same time, different schools, different branches of Buddhism within the same country. And it's so beautiful. So today we are talking about Zen Buddhism. So Zen Buddhism from Japan is so popular now. And also in Korea also we have the same practice, same tradition in China. So across the board in East Asia, this Zen Buddhism is so popular. Rituals are so popular. Zen Buddhism is not related to rituals. It's like mostly the meditation, like Vipassana meditation. And later on, of course, Zen was able to, adjust certain things to cater the needs of the people, like to enjoy the nature and, kind of aesthetic things. So with that, in that sense, in that area, Japan and Korea developed many things, and art and architecture, the other important thing. In China, Korea, and Japan, Buddhist influence is greatly seen in their art and architecture, statues, temple architecture, and things like that. So all these things are influenced by Buddhism. So these were the things that we were looking at in our class, especially ritualistic side. Rituals were developed in these 3 countries in East Asia. So Buddhism became a powerful force along the, let's say, about 1,600 years or 1,700 years. Yeah, during that period, Buddhism became a powerful force in East Asia. Even today, you see the impact of Buddhism in their lives. In East Asian countries, you see how people, you cannot exactly say they are 100% Buddhist, because they coexist with their traditional indigenous beliefs, Confucianism, Taoism, and other such practices in their culture. So a blend of their culture with Buddhism is very clearly seen in these countries. So the capacity to be able to blend with the existing system, Buddhism's capacity is so high that is why it became a bond that binds everybody together. Coexistence. Even though new schools came into being, that is their contribution to the development of Buddhist thought, Buddhist practices. So in this way, in this class, we were looking at the Buddhism, its spread and its impact in these countries, in East Asian countries. Okay. So now is the time for you to take the final exam. So you will get final exam in your email. So please submit your responses, your answers within this week. From next Monday up until next Monday, I will be accepting your responses. So please make sure that you write down your name more than anything else. Write down your name on your paper so I can understand, so I can recognize who you are. Otherwise, it's very hard. I haven't seen you not even a single day, so it's very hard to recognize who is who. So please submit your papers, submit your answers within this week. I hope you enjoyed the class. Thank you very much for being with this project. And hopefully, I don't know, not in the summer or not in the fall, I might not be able to continue teaching, but in the future, let's meet again. Thank you very much for joining us and keeping alive. If you have any questions in the last moment also, before the test, before the final, please contact me and I'm here to help you. Thank you very much. Good luck with your finals.